The message came on a Tuesday. All across Earth, screens flickered and changed. TV shows, phone calls, and internet searches were replaced by the face of a being with blue skin and large black eyes. Humans stopped and stared. This was first contact. "People of Earth," the alien said in perfect English, "I am Ambassador Nex of the Galactic Council. We have been watching your world. We wish to meet." Within hours, world leaders agreed to send diplomat Lisa Carter to the meeting point in orbit. She was calm, smart, and knew 6 languages. If anyone could speak for Earth, it was her. The shuttle carrying Lisa docked with the alien ship. Inside, she found herself in a large round room. 27 different alien species sat in a half circle. They looked down at her from tall chairs. Some had tentacles. Others had wings. A few glowed slightly. All watched her with cold eyes. "Welcome," said a tall green alien with 4 arms. "I am the Viridian representative. We control this part of space." Lisa took a deep breath. "On behalf of Earth, I bring greetings. We hope to learn from you and share what we know." The Viridian laughed. It was not a friendly sound. "Share? Learn? You have nothing we need. Your technology is primitive. Your customs are barbaric. You fight among yourselves over pieces of land and invisible borders." Lisa stood straighter. "We are young as a species, but we learn quickly. We seek peace." The aliens whispered among themselves. The blue one, Nex, seemed to argue with the Viridian. Finally, the Viridian raised a hand for silence. "The Council has voted. Earth will be assimilated into the Galactic Union. You will surrender your resources and accept our rule. You have 1 week to prepare your people." Lisa's face paled. "This isn't a meeting. It's a threat." "Not a threat. A fact. Resist, and we will destroy your major cities as an example." Back on Earth, Admiral John Blackwell received Lisa's report in a secured room deep under the Pentagon. His face grew darker with each word. "They're giving us 1 week before they attack." Lisa finished. "They have ships hidden behind the moon. Hundreds of them." The room fell silent. Then Blackwell pressed a red button on the table. "Activate Protocol Hydra," he said into a microphone. "Authorization Blackwell Delta 79. A female voice responded. "Protocol Hydra confirmed. Awakening all facilities." Lisa looked confused. "What's Protocol Hydra?" Blackwell stood up. "Something we hoped we'd never need." After the Cold War, world governments secretly agreed on a plan in case of hostile alien contact. We built hidden factories, stockpiled materials, and developed technology we kept from the public. On screens around the room, lights began to turn green across a world map. "Lunar facilities activating," the voice announced. "Mariana Trench Complex online. Asteroid belt mining operations redirecting." The President of the United States called an emergency broadcast. Leaders from Russia, China, the European Union, and other nations stood with him. "People of Earth," he began, "today we face a threat from beyond our world. The visitors are not friendly. They demand our surrender." He paused. "For the first time in human history, all nations are united. We will not surrender. We will defend our home." Across the planet, hidden doors opened in mountains, under oceans, and on the far side of the moon. Machines that had waited silently for decades hummed to life. Engineers who had trained for this day rushed to their stations. In orbit, the alien scout ships noticed the sudden surge in energy readings from Earth. The Viridian commander smiled. "They prepare defenses," he told his crew. "Primitive weapons cannot harm our ships." What he didn't know was that humans weren't building defenses. They were building a navy. Admiral Blackwell looked at the first reports coming in. "How long until the first ships are ready?" he asked. His assistant checked her tablet. "First wave will be operational in 36 hours. Full fleet deployment in 5 days." Blackwell nodded. "Let's hope that's enough time." As night fell across Earth, Millions of people looked up at the stars, unaware of the machinery now working at impossible speeds above and below them. The clock was ticking. Samantha Wright had not slept in 30 hours. The NASA engineer sat in front of 6 computer screens, her fingers flying across the keyboard. She had found something in the alien transmissions, a pattern that repeated every 12 seconds. "It's like a heartbeat," she told her team. "I think it's how their ships talk to each other." Across the room, a general nodded. "Can we listen in?" Samantha smiled. "Better. We can jam it." 2,000 miles away, Eric Porter walked through his factory. Until yesterday, it had made cars. Now the assembly lines were building something else. Workers moved with purpose, carrying metal parts to new machines that had arrived overnight. "How many can we make per day?" Eric asked his manager. "At current speed, about 50 ship frames. But if we run all 3 shifts and bring in the workers from our other factories, maybe 200. Eric nodded. "Do it, and call our steel plants. Tell them to send everything they have." Similar scenes played out in factories across the world. Companies that made planes, trains, and cars now made parts for spaceships. Old rivals worked together. Information and resources flowed freely between nations that had once pointed missiles at each other. Dr. Alan Cooper unlocked a door that few knew existed. It led to a lab deep under a mountain. Inside, 20 scientists looked up from their work. "The protocol has been activated," Alan told them. "It's time to show the world what we've been working on." He pressed his hand against a scanner. A wall slid open, revealing a large chamber. Inside floated a silvery liquid that moved like it was alive. "Programmable matter," Alan explained to the military officers who had followed him. "It can form any shape we need. We've been saving it for something important." One of the officers whistled. "How much do you have?" "Enough to build 3,000 ship hulls. Maybe more." In space, beyond the dark side of the moon, giant platforms woke from their long sleep. Solar panels unfolded like giant metal flowers, soaking up the sun's energy. Robotic arms extended, ready to build. Colonel Peter Jackson floated in zero gravity, watching the platforms come online. His radio crackled. "Colonel, Lunar Base Alpha reports ready for operation. The first shipment of materials will arrive in 6 hours." Peter looked at the Earth, blue and peaceful below him. "Tell them to hurry. We don't have much time." At the bottom of the Mariana Trench, the deepest part of the ocean, lights turned on for the first time in decades. Massive doors opened on the ocean floor. Inside, machines built during the Cold War hummed to life. Captain Laura Bennett guided her submarine through the doors. She had never believed the rumors about the trench factory until she received her orders this morning. "All stations reporting operational," her first officer said. "The facility can produce 200 engine cores per day." Laura stared at the enormous underground complex. All this time, it was just waiting down here. In orbit, the alien scout ships noticed unusual energy readings from Earth's moon and oceans. The Viridian commander sent a message to his fleet. "The humans are activating defensive systems. Nothing concerning. Their technology is primitive." His science officer looked worried. "Commander, these energy readings are higher than our intelligence suggested possible for their level of development." The commander waved a 4-fingered hand dismissively. "They are desperate. It changes nothing." Admiral Blackwell stood in Earth's unified command center. Representatives from every major nation watched as real-time updates flowed in from around the world. Materials production at 300% of projected capacity, an aide reported. "Lunar assembly platforms fully operational," said another. "Mariana facility reporting first engine cores complete and ready for transport." Blackwell looked at a world map covered with glowing dots representing hidden facilities now working at full capacity, and the asteroid belt operations. A woman stepped forward. "Sir, the mining ships have redirected their course. First resources will arrive at lunar platforms in 12 hours. For decades, humans had secretly mined the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. Now those resources were heading to Earth." Blackwell nodded. Keep pushing. We need every ship we can build. Outside, people went about their lives, unaware of the massive industrial awakening happening in secret. The news talked about precautionary measures, but shared few details. In 6 days, the aliens would learn what humans could do when their survival was at stake. Maria Delgado had spent 20 years playing war games. As the top space combat strategist for the combined Earth forces, she knew that traditional naval tactics wouldn't work in space. There was no up or down, no water to hide in, no weather to use as cover. The aliens expect us to act like beginners, she told the room full of officers. They think we will charge straight at them. That's what every new spacefaring race does, according to the data we pulled from their scout ship. She pointed to a 3D map showing Earth, the Moon, and the approaching alien fleet. But we won't do that. We'll use what they don't expect. Across the table, a young man raised his hand. This was Kevin White, a video game designer who had been brought in 3 days ago. His eyes were red from lack of sleep. I've run 10,000 simulations, Kevin said. The aliens use the same attack patterns over and over. They rely on their technology, not creativity. Maria nodded. Show them. Kevin tapped his tablet. The 3D map changed, showing hundreds of small dots moving in formation. This is their standard approach, he explained. They surround a planet with a sphere formation. It's perfect against enemies who can only attack from the surface. He tapped again. The map showed blue dots moving among the red alien ships. The blue dots moved in strange patterns, breaking into small groups, then rejoining. But what if we attack from all directions? What if our ships never stay in the same formation? What if we act unpredictable? The officers watched as the simulation showed the blue dots slowly overwhelming the red ones. They've never fought humans before, Maria said. They don't know how we think. In a different room, engineers worked on the first completed ship. It didn't look impressive. The outside was rough, with visible seams where sections had been joined together. It had none of the smooth lines of ships in movies. Greg Summers, the lead designer, patted the hull. She's not pretty, but she'll fight. The inside of the ship told a different story. The control systems used technology that had been kept secret for decades. The engines were more advanced than anything the public had seen. And the weapons, will they work? Admiral Blackwell asked as he toured the ship. Greg nodded. The gravity weapons will disrupt their shields. The pulse cannons will do the rest. And we can build enough of these in time. The first 100 will be ready tomorrow. After that, we can make 1,000 a day. Blackwell looked surprised. That many. Once we finish the first batch, we can use them to build more. It's exponential growth after that. Out in the asteroid belt, mining ships worked at full speed. They had been gathering resources for years, preparing for Earth's expansion into space. Now those resources were being sent back to Earth at record pace. Stealth technology kept the mining operation hidden from alien scouts. The same technology now covered Earth's moon, hiding the massive construction efforts taking place on its far side. In the Galactic Council chamber, representatives argued about Earth. They're just primitives, said the Viridian. Our fleet will crush them easily. I'm not so sure, said Nex, the blue-skinned ambassador who had first contacted Earth. Our scouts report unusual activity. What can they do in 1 week? The Viridian laughed. Build a few crude weapons. Our ships are the product of 1,000 years of development. Nex looked troubled. There's something strange about these humans. They adapt quickly. They work together in ways we've never seen. You worry too much. In 5 days, the main fleet arrives. Then Earth will be ours. Back on Earth, the first ships were leaving atmosphere. They moved to positions behind the moon, out of sight from alien scouts. Each hour, more ships joined them. Captain Olivia Ramirez watched from the bridge of her new ship. It had been completed just 3 hours ago. The paint was still wet in some places. How many are we now? She asked her second in command. Just over 200 ships in position, he replied. More coming every hour. Olivia looked at the radar showing the alien scout ships. They were watching Earth but missing the real action. They have no idea what's coming, she said quietly. The Viridian Vanguard fleet arrived with the sunrise. 50 massive ships entered Earth orbit in perfect formation. They were beautiful in a cold way, with smooth hulls that shimmered with faint blue energy. Each one was the size of a small city. People on Earth looked up and saw new stars in the morning sky. Those with telescopes could see the alien ships clearly. Fear spread through cities and towns. On the lead ship, Admiral Zex watched Earth on his view screen. His 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of satisfaction. Such a blue world, he said, rich with water and minerals. The Council will be pleased with our new acquisition. His second-in-command approached. Sir, we detect no space defenses, only primitive satellites and a small space station. Zex made a sound like stones rubbing together. This was a Viridian laugh. As expected, move the fleet into bombardment position. We will destroy one city to show them our power. The alien ships began to spread out, forming a ring around Earth. Their weapons charged, glowing with green energy. Behind the moon, Captain Frank Miller sat on the bridge of the U.S. Defiant. It was Earth's first new warship, completed just yesterday. The ship looked nothing like the sleek alien vessels. It was blocky and practical, built for battle rather than beauty. Frank looked at his crew. They were nervous but ready. Most had been ordinary people a week ago, pilots, engineers, gamers. Now they were Earth's first line of defense. All systems ready, Captain, said his weapons officer, a woman who had been a math teacher last week. Frank nodded. Start the engines. It's time to introduce ourselves. The U.S. Defiant moved from behind the moon, heading straight toward the alien fleet. It was just one ship against 50, but Frank knew something the aliens didn't. The Defiant wasn't alone. On the Viridian ship, an alarm sounded. Admiral, we detect a vessel approaching, said an officer. Zex looked at the screen. The human ship was small and crude-looking compared to his fleet. They send one ship, he said in disbelief. Scan it. The officer worked his controls. Metal hull, basic propulsion. Wait, there's something strange about its power core. I'm reading energy levels that shouldn't be possible with their technology. Zex narrowed his eyes. A trick. Open communication. Frank's face appeared on the alien view screen. This is Captain Frank Miller of Earth Defense. Your fleet is trespassing in Earth space. You will power down your weapons and leave, or we will remove you by force. Zex and his crew erupted in laughter. You threaten us with one ship, Zex said when he could speak again. Perhaps we will destroy it as our demonstration instead of a city. Frank didn't smile. This is your only warning. Zex waved a hand dismissively. Target that vessel and fire. Green energy beams shot from 3 Viridian ships, converging on the Defiant. But something impossible happened. The beams bent around the human ship, missing it completely. Gravity deflectors working perfectly, Captain, reported Frank's science officer. Good, said Frank. Now show them our teeth. The Defiant sides opened, revealing rows of weapons unlike anything the aliens had seen. They fired pulses of blue energy that moved in unpredictable patterns, weaving through space like living things. The alien ships tried to evade, but the energy pulses followed them, striking with perfect accuracy. 3 Viridian ships shuddered as their shields failed. 2 more lost power and began to drift. Zex stared in shock. Impossible. How can they have such weapons? Sir, his officer shouted, we're detecting more ships behind the moon. Many more. On the view screen, hundreds of Earth vessels emerged from hiding. They varied in size and shape, but all carried the same advanced weapons. This was a mistake, Zex said quietly. He opened a channel to his fleet. Retreat. Return to the main fleet and warned them. As the Viridian ships turned to flee, Frank allowed himself a small smile. Let one escape, he ordered. We want them to tell their friends what happened here. On Earth, Admiral Blackwell received the battle report. 5 alien ships disabled, the rest retreating. No damage to our fleet. Good, said Blackwell. But this was just the first wave. Get every ship we have ready. The real battle is coming. News of the first battle spread across Earth like wildfire. People cheered in the streets. Humanity had stood up to alien invaders and won. But military leaders knew the truth. This was just the beginning. In orbit around the moon, the shipyards worked at impossible speeds. Huge sections of metal moved through space, guided by robots and human workers in spacesuits. Ships that would normally take years to build were being completed in hours. Dr. Julia Martinez floated next to a piece of alien technology recovered from one of the disabled Viridian ships. It was part of their shield generator. Julia had been studying it for 12 hours straight. I think I understand how it works, she told her team through the radio. It's not that different from our gravity deflectors, just more refined. One of her assistants looked doubtful. Can we copy it? Julia smiled behind her helmet. We can do better. We can improve it. Within hours, the plans for the new shield technology were sent to all Earth shipyards. The next batch of ships would be even stronger. Down on Earth, people from all walks of life volunteered to help. College students wrote code for ship computers. Retired military personnel trained new crews. Factory workers took double shifts. In his office, Eric Porter looked at the latest production numbers. 10 new shipyards completed in the last 24 hours, he read aloud. Daily ship production up 300%. His assistant nodded. The 3D printing facilities are working better than expected. We can print a complete small fighter in just 2 hours now. This was the secret that had transformed Earth's manufacturing. Advanced 3D printing technology that had been developed in secret over decades. Huge printers could create entire ship sections in one piece. Some could even print with metal. How many ships do we have now? Eric asked. Just over 1,000 in active service. Another 2,000 will be ready by tomorrow. Eric looked out his window at the factory floor below. Keep pushing. We need more. In New York City, subway riders were surprised when their train skipped several stations. Few knew that beneath the city, old subway tunnels had been converted to manufacturing centers. The same was happening under London, Tokyo, Moscow, and Beijing. Mayor Carl Johnson walked through one of these hidden factories. Workers were building engine parts on assembly lines where subway tracks had once been. Never thought I'd see something like this, the mayor said to his guide. This facility has been maintained in secret since the 1960s. The guide explained. Every major city has similar installations. And the public never knew. It was decided that knowledge of alien life might cause panic. So these facilities were built as shelters at first, then converted for production if needed. Above ground, life continued almost normally. People went to work and school, but their eyes often turned to the sky. On the far side of Mars, the surviving Viridian scout ships met with their main fleet. Admiral Zex stood before his superior, High Commander Krell. The meeting was not going well. You fled from a single planet. Krell's voice was like ice. Their technology is more advanced than we thought. Zex tried to explain. Their weapons could track our ships. Their shields bent our energy beams. Krell's face darkened. Impossible. They were primitives just decades ago. Something has changed. They have ships. Many ships, and they're building more. Krell studied the battle recordings. Perhaps they had help. Perhaps another council race has broken our laws and given them technology. He stood up. It doesn't matter. No single planet can stand against our main fleet. The Viridian war fleet consisted of over 3,000 ships. They had conquered dozens of worlds. Not once had they been defeated. We attack in full force, Krell decided. No more warnings. No more chances for surrender. Back at Earth's unified command center, Admiral Blackwell received the news from their long-range scouts. The main alien fleet is on the move. he told his officers. "They'll be here in less than 2 days." A nervous silence fell over the room. "How many ships?" someone finally asked. "Over 3,000. General Linda Walsh, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. "And how many will we have by then?" Blackwell checked the latest production report and allowed himself a small smile. "If production continues at current rates, more than 10,000. Zorax had been a Galactic Council intelligence officer for over 50 years. In that time, he had seen many strange things, but nothing like the images now floating before him. The long-range probe had captured them just hours ago. Ships. Thousands of ships swarming around Earth's moon like metal insects. More were emerging every hour. The production rate was impossible. "This can't be right," he muttered, his 6 fingers tapping nervously on his desk. He sent the images to his superiors immediately. Within an hour, the full Galactic Council had gathered for an emergency meeting. "These must be fake," said the Viridian representative, his green face pale with worry. "No race could build so many ships so quickly." Nex, the blue-skinned ambassador who had first contacted Earth, shook his head. "The images are real. I had them verified by 3 different departments." The council chamber erupted in nervous chatter. 27 alien species, all more advanced than humans, all suddenly afraid. "How?" demanded the Viridian. "They were barely spacefaring a decade ago." Zorax stepped forward. "We may have misjudged them." He showed new images on the big screen. Earth factories working at incredible speeds, lunar bases that had been hidden from view, asteroid mining operations larger than any the Council had seen. "They kept these capabilities secret," Zorax explained. "They let us think they were weaker than they are." The Council members looked at each other with new understanding. It was a clever strategy. Let your enemy underestimate you, then surprise them. "This changes nothing," the Viridian insisted. "Our main fleet will still crush them. We have the most advanced weapons in the galaxy." Several council members nodded, but others looked doubtful. "Perhaps," said a small purple alien from the back, "we should consider peace." The Viridian slammed his 4 fists on the table. "Peace? After they attacked our scout fleet? After they showed such disrespect to the Council? They were defending their world," Nex pointed out. "We threatened them first." While the Council argued, a scientist named Salak studied Earth data at his private terminal. He had been fascinated by humans since they were discovered. "Interesting," he murmured, drawing the attention of a few nearby council members. "What is it, Salak?" one asked. "I've been comparing Earth's environment to other worlds. Humans evolved under unique conditions, higher gravity than most habitable planets. Extreme weather, large predators, constant warfare among themselves." He looked up. "They're survivors. Their entire history prepared them for this moment." The council fell silent, considering his words. "It doesn't matter what prepared them," the Viridian said finally. "The attack continues as planned. High Commander Krell's fleet will reach Earth tomorrow. 3,000 of our best ships against whatever rabble they managed to build." The vote was taken. The attack would proceed. But 7 council races abstained, something that had never happened before. As the council members filed out, Nex approached Zorax. "How many ships do you think the humans really have?" Nex asked quietly. Zorax checked that no one was listening. Based on their production rate, they might have 10,000 by now. Nex's blue skin turned almost white, "and we're sending 3,000 to fight them." "Krell doesn't believe my numbers. He thinks it's impossible." "Then he's a fool," Nex said. Meanwhile, the Viridian main fleet moved steadily toward Earth. The massive ships traveled in perfect formation, weapons ready. On the flagship, High Commander Krell reviewed the battle plans one last time. "We will surround the planet in a sphere formation," he told his officers. "No ship can escape, nothing can penetrate our line." One young officer looked nervous. "Sir, is it true they have thousands of ships now?" Krell laughed. Rumors and fear. Even if they do, their ships are primitive. Our technology is superior in every way. The officer nodded, but didn't look convinced. One day more, Krell said, looking at the tactical display showing Earth as a small blue dot. Then we teach these humans their place in the galaxy. What Krell didn't know was that Earth's long-range sensors had already detected his fleet, and the humans were ready. The day of battle arrived with a red sunrise. Around the world, people looked up at the sky with fear and hope. Many prayed. Some held their loved ones close. All waited. In Earth orbit, Admiral Nickel Peterson stood on the bridge of the U.S. Resilience, Earth's largest warship. It had been completed just 6 hours ago. The paint was still wet in some sections, and engineers were finishing the last connections in others. But it was ready to fight. "Status report," Nickel ordered, her voice calm despite the pressure. "All systems operational, Admiral. The fleet is in position." Nickel nodded. Earth's defense fleet was arranged in a new formation that Maria Delgado had designed. Instead of a traditional blockade, the ships were grouped in hundreds of small clusters, each able to move and fight independently. "Long-range sensors are picking up the alien fleet," her tactical officer reported. 3,000 ships, approaching in sphere formation. Nickel took a deep breath. Open channel to all Earth vessels. Her face appeared on the screens of 10,000 ships, large and small. Some were crewed by experienced pilots, others by people who had been civilians just days ago. "This is Admiral Peterson. Today we fight not just for Earth, but for humanity's right to exist free from alien control. Remember your training. Trust your ships, and know that every person on Earth stands with you." She paused. "No matter what happens today, history will remember that we did not surrender." Across space, thousands of voices cheered. Earth was ready. The Viridian fleet appeared first as tiny lights in the distance, then as shapes, finally, as massive warships that dwarfed most of Earth's vessels. They moved in perfect unison, their formation never breaking. On the Viridian flagship, High Commander Krell looked at his view screen with satisfaction. There they are, just as I said, a ragtag fleet of primitive ships. His second-in-command looked less certain. "Sir, I'm counting over 9,000 vessels." Krell blinked in surprise but quickly recovered. "Numbers mean nothing. Their technology is inferior." "Sir, should we adjust our formation to?" "No, the sphere is perfect. We will teach them how a real navy fights." The two fleets closed on each other. The silence of space hid the tension as thousands of weapons locked onto targets. "Fire at will," Nickel ordered. "All ships, attack," Krell commanded. Space lit up like a new sun was born. Thousands of energy beams, missiles, and strange weapons that bent the fabric of space itself crossed between the fleets. The Viridians expected an easy victory. What they got was chaos. Earth's ships didn't behave like any fleet they had fought before. Just when the Viridians thought they had a human ship cornered, it would suddenly change direction at speeds that should have crushed its crew. Small fighter craft swarmed around the larger alien vessels, finding weak points in their shields. Most surprising was how Earth's smaller ships worked together. They moved in perfect coordination, like flocks of birds or schools of fish. When the Viridians adapted to one tactic, the humans would immediately switch to another. "They're in our formation," a Viridian officer shouted as dozens of Earth vessels pushed through their line. Krell watched in disbelief as his perfect sphere broke apart. Impossible. How are they doing this? On a small Earth fighter, Lieutenant Gary Brooks led his squadron between two massive alien ships. His fighters were each the size of a bus, barely visible to the massive Viridian vessels. "Wolfpack 3, follow me," he called to his team. "Target their engine sections." 20 small ships dove toward the vulnerable spots they had identified in previous battles. Their weapons were designed specifically to penetrate Viridian shields. Across the battlefield, hundreds of similar attacks happened simultaneously. The human ships communicated and adapted faster than the aliens could respond. "Sir, we've lost 30% of our fleet," the Viridian's second-in-command reported, his voice shaking. "Their weapons, they're designed to counter our specific shield frequency." Krall stared at the tactical display. His neat formation was in ruins. His ships were being picked apart by an enemy that shouldn't have been able to challenge them. "How?" he whispered. "How did they build this fleet in 1 week?" On the U.S. Resilience, Nickel received the battle reports with grim satisfaction. "They're breaking formation, Admiral," her tactical officer said. "Their command ship is exposed." Nickel nodded. "All vessels, target the alien flagship. It's time to end this." High Commander Krall watched in horror as his fleet fell apart around him. 70% of his ships were damaged or destroyed. The rest were trying to regroup, but the human vessels gave them no time to recover. "Sir, we need to retreat," his second-in-command urged. Krall had never retreated in his long military career. His people did not believe in backing down. But as he looked at the battle unfolding on his view screen, he knew they were defeated. "Send the signal," he said quietly. "All ships, disengage and fall back." But it was too late. The human ships had surrounded his command vessel. Energy weapons struck from all sides, draining his shields. On the bridge, consoles exploded and crew members fell. "Incoming transmission from the human flagship," an officer reported. Admiral Nickel Peterson's face appeared on Krall's screen. "This is Earth defense. Your fleet is defeated. Surrender now, and we will spare your remaining ships." Krall's 4 hands clenched into fists. Surrender was shameful, but death without purpose was worse. "I surrender," he said, the words like acid in his mouth. Across the battlefield, the surviving Viridian ships powered down their weapons. The battle was over. Earth had won. On the U.S. Resilience, Nickel allowed herself a moment of relief before addressing her officers. "Secure the Viridian command ship, prepare to receive prisoners, and send word to Earth. We've won." Cheers erupted across the bridge. Similar scenes played out on thousands of human ships. People hugged, cried, and laughed. They had faced extinction and emerged victorious. 3 days later, in the Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council, Admiral Peterson stood before representatives of 27 alien civilizations. She wore her formal uniform, freshly made for this historic occasion. "The people of Earth come in peace," she began, looking at each council member in turn. "But we will not be ruled. We will not be controlled. We will not be assimilated." The chamber was silent. Many council races had never imagined that a single planet could defeat the mighty Viridian fleet. "We offer peace on these terms," Nickel continued. "Earth will join the Galactic Council as an equal member. All threats against our world will end. And we will share our technology with those who treat us with respect." The Viridian representative, not Krall but a civilian leader who had replaced the military government, spoke first. "The Viridian people accept these terms. We seek peace with Earth." One by one, other council members voiced their agreement. Even those who had voted for war now saw the wisdom in peace. Meanwhile, back on Earth, change was already spreading. The secret of humanity's rapid shipbuilding was now public knowledge. People learned about the hidden facilities that had existed for decades, preparing for this moment. "What happens to all these ships now?" a reporter asked Admiral Blackwell at a press conference. "Some will form our defense fleet," Blackwell answered. "Others will be converted for exploration. Humanity is ready to join the galactic community." Around the world, children looked up at the night sky with new understanding. The stars were no longer distant lights. They were places to visit, worlds to discover. On the Viridian homeworld, the news of their defeat led to revolution. Moderate leaders overthrew the military government that had pushed for war. They'd reached out to Earth, seeking to learn from the humans who had achieved so much so quickly. 6 months after the battle, Captain Paul Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the U.S. Horizon, Earth's first dedicated exploration vessel. It had once been a warship but was now filled with scientists and diplomats. "Course set, Captain," his navigator reported. "The galactic core awaits." Paul nodded. "Take us out. Let's show the galaxy what humans can do when we're not building war machines." The Horizon's engines glowed blue as it accelerated away from Earth. Behind it, a small fleet of similar ships followed. Their mission was to explore, to learn, and to represent humanity among the stars. On a distant world, an alien child looked up as a strange ship appeared in the sky. It was not like the Viridian warships that had sometimes visited their planet. This ship landed gently, and humans walked out with open hands and friendly smiles. The galaxy watched in wonder as humanity stepped onto the galactic stage, not as conquerors, but as equals ready to share their unique gifts with the universe.